दोस्तों, मैं हूं आपका दोस्त मदन सिंह एंड आज बात करेंगे हिंदुस्तान की फॉरेन पॉलिसी के बारे में। ये क्यों इम्पोर्टेंट है? क्योंकि अभी अभी जंग हुआ है पाकिस्तान का 3 दिन के लिए, और इस जंग में पता चल गया है कि हिंदुस्तान का कौन दोस्त है और कौन दुश्मन है। ये एक बात याद रखिए। और इसमें भी पता चल गया कि व्हाट इज द वैल्यू और द वेट ऑफ द फॉरेन पॉलिसी which is headed and controlled by Modi and Jaishankar. एक्चुअली इनका फॉल्ट नहीं है फ्रैंकली, क्योंकि ये एक हिस्टोरिकल प्रोसेस है एंड लॉट ऑफ कंट्रीज डोंट वांट कि इंडिया वर्ल्ड पावर बने। दैट इज वन द बेसिक जो कहते हैं ना बैकग्राउंड। अमेरिका पर्टिकुलरली बहुत घबराया हुआ है। दे डोंट वांट इंडिया टू कम बैक एज ए सुपर पावर लाइक चाइना, बिकॉज चाइना के साथ अमेरिका ने गलती करती है। और आप जानते हैं कि चाइना को जो जूस दिया है, इतने ने बिलियंस ऑफ डॉलर्स ऑफ इन्वेस्टमेंट किया चाइना में, इट वाज डन बाय द अमेरिकन्स। अमेरिका ने मिलियंस बिलियंस ऑफ डॉलर्स इन्वेस्टमेंट किया। अमेरिका के बड़े बड़ी इंडस्ट्री जो थे, इंडस्ट्रियल जाइंट्स, उन्होंने सोचा ये बहुत अच्छी मार्केट है, चीप मार्केट है, ऑर्डर है, बिकॉज वहाँ डिक्टेटरशिप है एंड हेंस वी शुड गो एंड ज्वाइन चाइना। और नेट रिजल्ट हुआ, चाइना एक सुपर पावर बन गया, एक फ्रैंकेनस्टीन बन गया। यू नो व्हाट इज फ्रैंकेनस्टीन? एक आर्टिफिशियल क्रिएशन थी एंड दैट मैन वाज आर्टिफिशियली क्रिएटेड इन द लेबोरेटरी, और वो एक बहुत मेनेस बन गया टू ह्यूमैनिटी। ये किताब मेरी शैली ने लिखी थी एंड इट्स अ वेरी फेमस बुक। पर प्रॉब्लम ये है जेंटलमैन कि फ्रैंकेनस्टीन क्रिएट कर दिया अमेरिका ने एंड नाउ उनको समझ नहीं आ रहा था क्या है। दे डोंट वांट टू रिपीट इट बाय गिविंग एनी सपोर्ट टू इंडिया। इसी कारण अमेरिका ने, जब लड़ाई चल रही थी उस पीरियड में, पाकिस्तान को 3.2 बिलियन लोन दे दिया। अब ये कहते हैं लोन है, बट इट्स नॉट ए लोन, इट्स ए ग्रांट, बिकॉज पाकिस्तान के पास कैपेसिटी तो है कि वो वापस में पेमेंट कर सकते हैं। पाकिस्तान की हालत इतनी खराब है। और 3 या 4 दिन की लड़ाई में पाकिस्तान का जूस निकल गया, वो आगे लड़ नहीं सकते थे। एंड अगर लड़ाई कहीं 10 दिन चल जाती है, बहुत चांस था कि बलूचिस्तान आजाद हो जाता। तो ये एक मौका था मोदी के पास, बट अनफॉर्चुनेटली मोदी डिडंट टेक द अपॉर्चुनिटी, बिकॉज फॉरेन पॉलिसी जो है वो इंडिया के फेवर में नहीं थी। क्योंकि जंग तभी आदमी लड़ सकता है जब आपका कोई सपोर्ट हो, ग्लोबल सपोर्ट हो। इफ यू गेट नो ग्लोबल सपोर्ट, देन नोबडी कैन सपोर्ट यू, एंड दैट इज द क्रूशियल इशू व्हिच वी मस्ट रिमेंबर। इन द 71 वॉर, इंडिया हैड द support of the European bloc, that is the East European bloc and Russia. जितनी भी कम्युनिस्ट कंट्री थी who were members of the Warsaw Pact supported India. अमेरिका अगेंस्ट था हमारे, इंग्लैंड भी अगेंस्ट था, फ्रांस भी था, बट रशिया एक सुपर पावर था, वो इंडिया के पीछे खड़ा था एंड देयर वाज नथिंग द अमेरिकन्स कुड डू। अभी इंडिया ने क्या किया है? इंडिया ने रशिया को एलिनेट कर दिया। Now this is I will explain you, बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट है। और ये पॉइंट जो है, आई थिंक जयशंकर जी एंड मोदी शुड थिंक अबाउट इट, कि ये बहुत गलत काम उन्होंने किया है। और हर बार टू थिंक ऑफ चाइना एज एन एनिमी और उनको प्रोवोक करना, ये भी अच्छी बात नहीं है। मैं दोनों पॉइंट्स डिस्कस करूंगा फॉरेन पॉलिसी के। रशिया हमारा अलाई था फॉर अ लॉन्ग टाइम। इन 92 वहाँ एक revolution hui, and that Soviet state broke up and became some 18 countries. But Russia retained its power and it continued to be a friend of India. Weapons वगैरह रशिया सप्लाई करते थे, everything was there. And कुछ टाइम के लिए इंडिया was still relying on Russia. पर उस एक प्रॉब्लम आई, जियो पॉलिटिक्स जो है, रशिया एंड चाइना हैड a big border problem. ये सोच गौर से सुनिएगा। And that is the reason they had so many border clashes between the Russian army and the Chinese army, and many Chinese and Russians were killed. But then both the countries thought, well, why are we fighting? हम क्यों लड़ रहे हैं? Let's demarcate the border. तो उन्होंने border का demarcation किया, कुछ एरिया इधर गए उधर गए, and they made a peace treaty. And इस वक्त China and Russia together है, they are like a monolith power, और अमेरिका घबराया हुआ है, and America wants to break that alliance. सो इंडिया ने बॉर्डर सेटलमेंट करना ही नहीं चाहते थे चाइना के साथ। दैट इज नंबर 1। नंबर 2, आफ्टर 92 इंडिया थॉट कि अमेरिका हमारा बड़ा अच्छा दोस्त है, एंड पर्टिकुलरली जब नरेंद्र मोदी पावर में आए, ही थॉट अमेरिका मेरा ब्रेड एंड बटर है। और ये बात मुझे समझ में नहीं आई, बिकॉज मोदी के ऊपर तरीकन 10 साल से ज्यादा देर वॉज अ बैन ऑन हिज गेटिंग अ वीजा टू गो टू अमेरिका, टू यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स। और ये कोई डिनाई नहीं कर सकता ये बैन क्यों था। आई एम नॉट गोइंग टू डिटेल्स, पर कुछ परसेप्शन थी अमेरिका में कि मोदी एंटी मुस्लिम है एंड ही इज गॉट लॉट ऑफ पीपल किल्ड। दिस इज नॉट करेक्ट, पर एक परसेप्शन थी अमेरिका में, तो उन्होंने मोदी को वीसा नहीं दिया फॉर 10 years। जब मोदी प्राइम मिनिस्टर बन गया तो फिर तो आई मीन देयर नो चॉइस, यू कांट टेल द प्राइम मिनिस्टर नॉट टू कम देयर। सो उसको सब ऑनर मिलने लगी। और मोदी इन इज थिंकिंग थॉट कि अब जो ग्लोबल रीअलाइनमेंट होनी चाहिए उसमें इंडिया शुड बी विद अमेरिका। ये मोदी साहब की थिंकिंग थी, एंड दिस इज व्हाट ही गेव टू द इंडियन फॉरेन मिनिस्टर टू फॉलो। जयशंकर इज अ वेरी सीजन पॉलिटिशियन and he did a very good job. मेरे ख्याल he was the best foreign minister. पर constraints of global strategic currents, इसके लिए whether it's Jaishankar or anybody else, you have to make a plan to fight that. And एक ये बहुत बड़ी गलती थी कि अमेरिका के साथ इतनी क्लोज फ्रेंडशिप करने की जरूरत नहीं थी जब अमेरिका रेसिप्रोकेट नहीं कर रहा। डोनाल्ड ट्रंप आप देखिए इज नॉट इंडिया फ्रेंड, मैंने आपको कई बार बोला है, वो अमेरिका का फ्रेंड है। फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल ही क्लेम्स कि मैंने सीज फायर कराया है, और इंडिया की जो छवि है वो ढीली पड़ गई ग्लोबली, एंड नाउ इंडिया इज नॉट थॉट ऑफ एज ए ग्रेट पावर। वो कहते ये तो पेपर टाइगर है जो 3 दिन की लड़ाई डोनाल्ड ट्रंप ने बोला फाइट बंद करो, और ही एग्री टू स्टॉप इट। दैट इज नंबर 1। Number 2, Donald Trump has been making statement जैसे Apple is expanding production in India की ये इंडिया मत बढ़ाओ and you come to America. I mean this is not against India, but the fact is he want, जैसे हम आत्मनिर्भर कहते हैं, Donald is following the same policy कि whatever you want to make, you make in America. Don't make it in India. In addition, he has never said that Kashmir is a part of India and never has he condemned Pakistan. कोई भी अमेरिकन प्रेसिडेंट है, दे हैव हैड अ सॉफ्ट कॉर्नर फॉर पाकिस्तान। उसका एक रीजन है, पाकिस्तान उनका अलाई है, एक तरीके से चमचा है फ्रॉम 1954। इंडिया कुड हैव आल्सो बिकम वन एट दैट टाइम, और इंडिया वुड हैव बीन अ डिफरेंट हिस्ट्री ऑल टुगेदर। पर हमने सोचा हम इंडिपेंडेंट रहेंगे, वी फॉलो इंडिपेंडेंट पाथ। इंडिपेंडेंट पाथ तभी फॉलो करना चाहिए जब आपके पास पावर है, शक्ति है। इफ यू गॉट द स्ट्रेंथ, इफ यू गॉट नथिंग, फिर इंडिपेंडेंस का कोई मतलब नहीं है। हाउएवर मैडम गांधी वाज वेरी श्यूड, उसने रियलाइज किया द वीकनेस ऑफ इंडिया एंड शी साइंड द डिफेंस पैक्ट विद द सोवियत यूनियन। इस कारण जब बांग्लादेश वॉर चली तो रशिया हमारे पीछे, यानी द यूएसएसआर वाज बिहाइंड इंदिरा गांधी। मोदी ने ऐसी कोई अलायंस बनाई नहीं रशिया के साथ, ही स्पॉइल्ड द रिलेशंस। मेरे ख्याल में जो कार्ड प्रिंसिपल आया जब मोदी खुद ही कंफ्यूज हो गए। He went to Russia on a visit, if you all remember, and just 15 days after that, he wanted to show to the West, I'm a very peace-loving man and I'm neutral and all that, and he made a visit to Ukraine. Russian didn't like it. वो लड़ाई चल रही उनकी यूक्रेन के साथ, and मोदी जी वहाँ यूक्रेन जा रहे हैं, what for? Even at that time I said it was a mistake and the Russians were alienated. He was also alienating the Americans by not signing and agreeing to be a complete part of the क्वाड का वो मेंबर नहीं बन रहे थे कंप्लीट, सिर्फ हम जी ट्रेड करेंगे या एंटी पायरेसी करेंगे। बेसिकली क्वाड वाज मेंट टू फाइट चाइना, एंड मोदी हैड कोल्ड फीट, ही डिड नॉट डेवलप। द अमेरिकन थॉट ये आदमी तो अनरिलायबल है, वी कांट रिलाई ऑन हिम। एंड एज फार एज चाइना इज कंसर्न, मैंने पहले ही बताया, वे बैक इन 61 चाइना इतना बड़ा पावर नहीं था, दो दे वर बेटर देन इंडिया। उस टाइम चाउ एंड लाई केम टू इंडिया, ये रिकॉर्ड है। और 7 days ही स्पेंट इन न्यू दिल्ली। वो सारे इंडियन लीडर से मिले, गोविंद बल्लभ पंत से लेके, कटजू से लेके, पंडित नेहरू से लेके, डॉक्टर राधाकृष्णन जो प्रेसिडेंट थे उनसे मिले। ही मेट ऑल दिस पीपल, एंड आफ्टर मीटिंग देम ही पुट ए प्रपोजल देयर, एंड दिस प्रपोजल इज वन ऑफ द बेस्ट विच चाइना हैड गिवन इंडिया। उन्होंने कहा कि दी मैकमोहन लाइन जो है ईस्टर्न बॉर्डर वी विल रिकॉग्नाइज, नंबर 1, पर आप रिकग्नाइज कर लीजिए कि अक्साई चीन जो है इज पार्ट ऑफ चाइना because it has never been under your control. And we should not accept the historical borders which were created by the British because they are imperialistic borders. And we must work historically. Very wonderful thing. And as I told you, we met so many of the Indian leaders, but all of them were living in a different world. They thought कि हम ये agree नहीं कर सकते, तो मत करिए जी. What actually happened? Chow and Lai went away empty-handed. उसने माओ सी तंग को रिपोर्ट किया कि नेहरू इज नॉट एग्रीइंग फॉर दी बॉर्डर सेटलमेंट. और वो क्यों बॉर्डर सेटलमेंट चाहते थे चाइना एट दैट टाइम? बिकॉज चाइना वाज अंडर प्रेशर. जनरल शेंका शेख वाज exercising his muscles. He was coming thinking of invading the mainland again with the help of the Americans and the Japanese. And China wanted to face them. This है कि इंडिया से हम पीस कर लेंगे. पर इंडिया ने उनको प्रोवोक किया फर्दर. कैसे प्रोवोक किया? पंडित नेहरू को जब पता चला कि चाइनीज ने सब एरिया अक्साई चीन वगैरह का ले लिया, ही वाज इन ए स्टेट ऑफ शॉक. ही डिडंट नो. और गलती सारी उसी की थी. और इट इज ए ह्यूज एरिया, सम 37,000 स्क्वायर माइल्स. और इंडिया ने वहां कोई एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन नहीं बनाई थी. देयर वाज नथिंग. एंड नेहरू मेड स्टेटमेंट आल्सो कि नॉट ए ब्लेड ऑफ ग्रास गोज देयर. आई मीन ऐसी स्टूपिड बात क्यों करनी भाई? But all the same, he made no attempts. But when all this was going on, there was a lot of public pressure on Nehru, and he ordered the army to set up forward posts facing China. और इन्होंने फॉरवर्ड पोस्ट शुरू कर दी बनानी. भाई एक छोटी छोटी टुकड़ियां आर्मी की वहां जाती थी, बट दे डिडंट हैव एनी एमिनिशन. 15 राउंड ऑफ बुलेट सबको मिलते थे एंड ऑल दैट, एंड वो जाते थे वहां, आते थे जाते थे. चाइनीज वर नॉट वेरी हैप्पी विद दिस. और सबसे बड़ी चीज हुई जब एक श्रीलंका को एक विजिट कर रहा था नेहरू, और एयरपोर्ट पे उसे क्वेश्चन पूछा गया ऑन द बॉर्डर, तो उसने एक बड़ा स्टेटमेंट दिया विच कैन बी वेरीफाइड एनीवेयर. ही सेड, आई हैव इंस्ट्रक्टेड द आर्मी टू थ्रो आउट द चाइनीज. अरे आई मीन इट वाज अ स्टेटमेंट विच वाज एक्सट्रीमली फुलिश, बट ही हैड मेड नो अटेम्प्ट्स टू रीइंफोर्स द आर्मी इन लद्दाख और नेफा और समवेयर, एंड दिस वाज जस्ट एन ऑर्डर गिवन ऑफ द कफ. उस वक्त माओ सी तुंग ने सोचा कि चाइना ये तो रियली ना अटैक कर जाए इंडिया. बिफोर दैट आई विल अटैक इंडिया. एंड ही एड्रेस्ड द सेंट्रल कमिटी ऑफ द कम्युनिस्ट पार्टी इन बीजिंग, और उनको बताया कि ये बात हुई है. एंड उसने बोला कि आई वांट टू अटैक इंडिया. बट वो अटैक नहीं करता जब तक वो ओके नहीं लेता फ्रॉम द रशियन लीडर निकिता क्रूशोव. बिकॉज क्रूशोव जो था उसने इंडिया के साथ रिलेशंस अपने बनाने शुरू किए थे. एंड इंडिया को उस टाइम ड्यूरिंग हिज टाइम ये MiG-21 प्लेन दिया गया था, जो जबकि अमेरिकन एंड ब्रिटिश जो थे दे हैड रिफ्यूज्ड टू गिव इंडिया द फाइटर्स. तो उसकी कंकरेंस वो लेना चाहते थे कि ही शुड नॉट अपोज दिस. एंड अकॉर्डिंगली a top Chinese leader went to Moscow and spoke to Khrushchev and took his okay, and Khrushchev said it's okay, but Khrushchev ने लगाया कि make it a limited war and खत्म कर देना. और उस वक्त चाइनीज ने अटैक किया जब एक अमेरिका जो था वो बिल्कुल टाइड अप था. टाइड अप कैसे था? 62 में एक क्राइसिस हो रहा था क्यूबा में. रशियन ने वहां मिसाइल लगती थी, और अमेरिका ने अल्टीमेट दिया कि these missiles have to be removed because America will be under threat. ये medium range missiles थी which could carry atomic warheads, and they were positioned there under instructions of Khrushchev. So Khrushchev tried to reason कि नहीं it's not like a threat and all that, but America ने declared a quarantine of Cuba, and they only allowed the oil tankers to go, and they said we are ready for a fight. उस वक्त जब फेस टू फेस थे Khrushchev and Kennedy, John Kennedy was the American president. At that time, I think Khrushchev blinked, and he gave the instruction to remove the missiles. This is known as the Cuban Crisis. और Russia and China and America were tied up there. और इस पीरियड में चाइना ने इंडिया को अटैक किया कि अमेरिका could not was tied up in Cuba. They could not intervene this side, and they destroyed the Indian army. And Indian army की गलती नहीं थी, ये पंडित नेहरू की गलती थी. He never made any attempts एंड ही डिसलाइक द आर्मी फ्रेंकली, दैट वाज आल्सो देयर। वो मैं बाद में एक वीडियो में बताऊंगा आपको कि किस तरीके से नेहरू डिसलाइक द आर्मी। तो नेट रिजल्ट ये हुआ जेंटलमैन कि इंडिया हार गया एंड बॉर्डर जो था वो एक बॉर्डर प्रॉब्लम बन गई। हिस्टोरिकली आप देखिए रशिया और चाइना का मैंने बताया बॉर्डर था, बट दे हैड ए सेटलमेंट। इंडिया could have also had a settlement on the basis of what the Chinese had offered. And again in 81 the same offer was repeated, mind you, 20 years बाद में, I think when there was another Chinese president, Deng था शायद, I think President Deng के टाइम में ये आया, and the same offer was repeated, and again the Indians could not decide, and lot of people in parliament say ये हमारी टेरिटरी हम लेके रखेंगे। अरे भाई कैसे लेके रखोगे, आपके पास ताकत तो है नहीं, क्या लेके रखोगे? You should have had a settlement. So एक enmity बन गई between India and China, and moment China grew up in power, they began to pulverize India. और अब वो आगे भी क्लेम कर रहे हैं, they are claiming कि हम सारा अरुणाचल प्रदेश is our territory। इसका मतलब एक perpetual border problem चाइना के साथ शुरू हो गया, and India does not have the military capability to take those areas back which they claim are part of China। ये मैंने डायग्रेस किया टू शो द limitations of India, the geopolitical limitations of India, and then the Modi has inherited that, and he has made no attempt to change it. Just having meetings with Mao Zedong, with President Xi once a year, every alternate year, and take him to Goa or take him to Gujarat and उसको झूले में बिठाना, all that is irrelevant, because Modi could not assess President Xi at all. ये एक फैक्ट ऑफ हिस्ट्री है। एंड ही इवन टुक हिम टू तमिलनाडु, और ये वहाँ तमिल ड्रेस डाल के घूम रहा था मोदी विद हिम, because he never realized that the Chinese are very hurt, there is no border solution, and India they thought is an enemy of China. Modi at that time was tilting more and more towards the United States, or the unwanted guests. USA were not happy with India at all. They were giving lip service, और आपने देख लिया Modi was saying that I am the friend of Trump. Even Trump was saying Modi is my great friend. पर ये Modi great friend का क्या मतलब है? Nothing bloody done for Modi and party, and the net result has been zero इस war में। ये war इंडिया जीत जाता अगर अमेरिका बैकिंग दे देता इंडिया को, बलूचिस्तान भी आज़ाद हो जाता है, and India could have captured the entire Pakistan occupied Kashmir. It was a good, very good chance of this. But with no backing from America, he ordered a ceasefire, और रशिया ने अपने हाथ पीछे कर लिए, बिकॉज़ रशियन सेड भाई आप तो हमारे साथ ही नहीं है, यू आर नॉट विद अस। रशिया ने न्यूट्रलिटी कर दी। ऑफ कोर्स लॉट ऑफ कंट्रीज कंडेम्ड द पहलगाम मैसेकर, बट दैट इज अ डिफरेंट थिंग। नोबडी कंडेम्ड पाकिस्तान। पाकिस्तान को एक कंट्री ने भी कंडेम नहीं किया अदर देन इजराइल। और आप जानते हो कि व्हेन द इंटरनेशनल मॉनेटरी फंड की मीटिंग चली, almost all the members of that who were present were in favor of Pakistan getting the treasure of $3.2 billion, all of them there. अब वो कंट्री के नाम नहीं मैं लेना चाहता, बट इट्स ए नोन फैक्ट। इंडिया लोन अली रखी कला पड़ेगा। एंड इवन इन दिस वॉरफेयर पाकिस्तान को बहुत ज़बरदस्त सपोर्ट मिला फ्रॉम टर्की, अजरबैजान, इजिप्ट एंड चाइना। इंडिया को किसी से सपोर्ट नहीं मिला, नथिंग। इंडिया एक जैसे होता ना होमलेस चाइल्ड, वैसा हो गया। हाउ लॉन्ग कुड हैव इंडिया फॉट? दैट इज अनदर पॉइंट। A quick lightning war maybe for 10 or 12 days was perhaps required, जिसमें इंडिया could achieve its objectives, but at least 12 दिन तो लड़ाई करनी थी। But इंडियन फॉरेन पॉलिसी जो थी वो डिफेक्टिव इन द सेंस मोदी थॉट मैं जब भी डाल लूंगा सबको जाके everything will be okay, but it doesn't happen like that. In 11 years he has traveled the nook and corner of the world. एक अंग्रेजी गाना था माइकल हॉलवे जिसमें वो कहता, I have seen the mountains, I have traveled the ocean, and I have gone into the desert, and I have become a global traveler. यही इसकी हालत थी। He had traveled everywhere, मंगोलिया से लेके चाइना से लेके, even was going to South America, सब जगह जाके घूम रहे थे, यूरोप में छोटी छोटी कंट्रीज में। एंड ही थॉट कि इंडिया की इमेज बन रही है, इमेज जरूर बनी उस टाइम पे, बट नोबडी केम फॉरवर्ड टू हेल्प यू। उसका एक कारण है कि इंडिया की इकोनॉमी जो थी एंड मिलिटरीली इंडिया वाज वीक। चाइना की is the biggest trader in the world. China trades with 143 or 150 countries and it has the trade balance with everybody. इंडिया का तो ट्रेड ही नहीं है एंड वी हैव नो मनी टू गिव टू एनीबॉडी। थोड़ा बहुत पैसा हम दे देते हैं कभी लंका को कभी इधर, बट नेट रिजल्ट इज द पीपल्स परसेप्शन इज कि चाइना इज द बेटर बेट। आप देखिए लंका ने क्या किया, ये लंका इंडिया का दोस्त नहीं है। 71 वॉर में when the Indian army was advancing in Bangladesh, अभी बांग्लादेश में उस टाइम ईस्ट पाकिस्तान, lot of army supplies were going to Bangladesh and they were going by landing at श्रीलंका। श्रीलंका ने उनको लैंडिंग फैसिलिटी दे रखी थी सो दैट दे कुड प्रोड्यूस गो ऑन टू ईस्ट पाकिस्तान। ये दोस्ती है क्या इंडिया के साथ? नो। इवन जब 62 में चाइना ने इंडिया को थप्पड़ मारा, इंडिया हार गया, श्री माओ बंदार नायक ने एक मीटिंग कराई एंड विद 5 इंडिपेंडेंट नेशन एंड दे डिड नॉट सपोर्ट इंडिया एंड शी वाज सपोज्ड टू बी अ ग्रेट फ्रेंड ऑफ इंडिया। अब कोई भी देख लीजिए कंट्री, नोबडी वाज सपोर्टिंग इंडिया एट दैट टाइम एंड नाउ आल्सो द सेम थिंग हैपेंड। श्रीलंका है या नेपाल है, दे हैव नॉट कंडेम्ड पाकिस्तान, नॉट एट ऑल, एंड इंडिया इज ओनली टॉकिंग एंड टॉकिंग, दैट्स अबाउट ऑल। एंड मोदी, ये बात याद रखिए, had completely misjudged Pakistan, completely misjudged America. He thought he will have a tilt towards America and America will be our ally and then we will face China. ये इतने आसान नहीं है, बिकॉज चाइना की मिलिट्री पावर और इकोनॉमी इतना स्ट्रांग है कि अमेरिका भी घबराता है चाइना से। वेयर इज द क्वेश्चन दैट अमेरिका विल सपोर्ट इंडिया विच अगेंस्ट चाइना? बाय लिप सर्विस दे विल डू इट, यस, but they will not come into an active battle against China. And अभी सिचुएशन बहुत डिफरेंट हो गई है। डोनाल्ड ट्रंप जो है wants to go in down in history as the first American president who never started a war. ये बहुत बड़ी चीज है और इंडिया should have understood. And जब डोनाल्ड ट्रंप ने चीज फायर कराया था उसको थैंक करना था, instead of saying all the time all this nonsense which India was talking कि हम नहीं करना चाहते थे, डोनाल्ड ट्रंप ने ऐसे कर दिया, ये कर दिया, वो कर दिया। I mean, it's all silly. And you know, you want to win the favor of America, then you've got to appreciate what America is doing. आप मोदी वर थिंकिंग फ्रांस इज ग्रेट फ्रेंड, कितनी बार वो फ्रांस जाते थे और उसके साथ मैक्रोन के साथ जपी डाल के बात कर रहे हैं। एंड दिस जपी डाल के इज आई थिंक इन इंटरनेशनल पॉलिटिक्स नॉट द करेक्ट वे फॉरवर्ड। यू सी अ मैन गोइंग अब्रॉड, नाउ आई विल टेल यू, ही हैज टू क्रिएट एन इंप्रेशन, एन ऑरा। आप देखिए जो टेररिस्ट लीडर था सीरिया का, हु यूज्ड टू रन अराउंड इन सलवार कमीज एंड शर्ट, एंड नाउ वंस ही इज इन पावर, he is sitting slick and fine in British suits. He's wearing suits. He looks handsome. And when now he met Donald Trump in that massive party in Riyadh, Donald Trump told him, "You look handsome and energetic." And net result of it is that all sanctions on Syria have been removed by Trump in one minute. So ये होता, मतलब आपको एक इमेज में करना पड़ रहा है where people feel that you are not only great, you are a man who can do things. And I think that his dress also, earlier in his first term he used to go properly dressed, you know, with a close collar suit and trouser. But the second term he started wearing the Indian dress all over. And when you see the painting group photographs of him with other leaders, if there are 30 leaders, all of them are dressed in suits. He's the one man standing in a pajama and kurta. I'm not against his wearing all this thing, but bear in mind the perception of the man of the world. This man is still living in a medieval age, because the general dress which is accepted in the corporate world is the suit. You can't go to become a vice president. I can't go to as a vice president of Southeast Asia head and in a pajama or something like that. I think the American board of directors who appointed me, they'll say, "Okay, sir, we had enough of you, go home." And that is the time. And secondly, his lack of fluency in English also is a handicap. All this has been made up by Jai Shankar. He's a first-class foreign minister, and I think Modi must thank him for whatever efforts have borne fruit. He has shown the face, the mirror to so many countries, Mr. Jai Shankar, and he has done very well. But then he has also limitations. His limitations are that India lacks military power. That's the crux of the issue. Otherwise, how could a small country like Maldives defy India? They're still defying India. They have thrown the Indian soldiers out from there. Maldives and Maldives president was going to Russia, and China and requesting for money and everything. But the Chinese are very clever. They don't want to commit with anything. And ultimately he got nothing. And he came back to India as a friend. But then he's not a friend. He's not a friend. I think Modi must have realized it by now. Same thing with Bangladesh. A total lack of policy there. I think Modi was the man who must be controlling Bangladesh. And when Sheikh Hasina was facing the agitators, that was the time for Modi to act. He did not act. I don't know what he was doing. That was the time. You have to bolster Sheikh Hasina, maybe rush in Indian troops there to help her. And particularly with America almost neutral. In fact, if you remember when in the last meeting which he had with Trump and the press conference which I saw, somebody asked a question about Bangladesh and Donald Trump said, I've left that to Modi. Left that to Modi means what? Modi did nothing. Modi was again trying the same stunt which he had tried with Lanka and Maldives, trying to placate the Muhammad Yunus regime by giving him rice and all that and going and attending his functions and all that. It was not required. Muhammad Yunus got the feeling that India is a weak country. And weakness is something which carries, it lingers on. India should have removed Yunus, there was no problem. There was unrest in Bangladesh and now he has even banned the Awami party. And yet India is just sitting like nothing. You see, Bangladesh, India overran in 13 days. India could have done the same thing now and restored Sheikh Hasina. It has been done by the Americans so many times in so many countries where they have had a regime change. America has done it. I won't tell you all the countries, you know it. Even the Shah of Iran was put into force there by the Americans and he ruled till 1977 or something, till he was thrown out. But at the same time, it is the CIA who put the Shah on the throne back, I think in 55 or something. And there was a reason here, and India had a good reason. Bangladesh is our backyard. We cannot allow anti-India activities there. And once force had been put in, I think Bangladesh would not have fought. The Bangladesh army is a big zero. Let me tell you this. They have nothing. And yet, I think Bangladesh policy is a total failure. I feel very sad when I say this because I've been to Dhaka and there was a lot of sympathy with India at one time. But now nobody is there to talk about India. And the almost 2 to 2.5 million Hindus there are under threat. Who helps them in the world? Nobody. Donald Trump made a statement, I am the greatest friend of the Hindus. But that's about all. Basically, you have to defend yourself until you have the power. And along with the power, you must have the will. Now, what the use of power, you don't have the will to fight. This was the problem with Pandit Nehru. Moment the battle with Pakistan went beyond 6 months and winter came, Nehru panicked. He said, अरे भाई ये तो बड़ी लंबी लड़ाई चल रही है, अभी तो मैं बंद कर दूँ चलती रहेगी. And despite the advice of all the ministers, इसने ceasefire agree कर लिया and gave 40% of Kashmir to Pakistan. That was because of his fear, and he had never fought a long war. Look at the way the Russians and the Ukrainians are fighting for over 3 years. Israel is fighting for years together. You can't get say कि ये लड़ाई होगी मैं ceasefire करूँगा. Same thing India did in 65. There was a ceasefire. Shastri जो थे also was under pressure. He agreed for a ceasefire because एक stalemate हो गई थी उस time. India could not move forward, neither Pakistan could forward. There was a stalemate, and the fire and the battle was stopped. 71 May, when Bangladesh had been overrun by the Indian army, at that time Manek Shah probably suggested we could move westward. But General Candidates was specially given a role that you will not do it, and a holding situation is to be made in the sense that you will hold the border, and at the same time, India declared a unilateral ceasefire. Of course, there was some pressure from the Russians, I am told, but India need not have declared. This was the time to knock out Pakistan and solve the problem once and all. We had already 95,000 Pakistani prisoners of war, and Madam Gandhi should have continued further. I give her a lot of praise for the breaking Pakistan into two, but I cannot accept her policy and the way she stopped the war and then had the Shimla Agreement. You know, the Shimla Agreement is a big fraud, and Bhutto fooled Indira Gandhi. And I recollect reading Bhutto's article once, about Bhutto, and once he had come from the Shimla Agreement, his first words were, "I have fooled the bitch." That's what he said. And he had no plan or any idea to honor the Shimla Agreement, which in any case has been declared dead now. And why should India not negotiate? That's another point which I could remember. If enemies like Russia and Ukraine are going to nucleate, and एक याद रखिए, during the height of the Cold War, when the Russians and the Americans were face to face, ready to fight, there were always meetings. Even I think Nikita Khrushchev met Kennedy. Nikita Khrushchev toured the USA for 13 days, and he was taken everywhere, including to Hollywood, where he attended a can-can dance with bare women. And he was a very forthright Russian, old-fashioned. He said, "I am not happy seeing these backless women. A woman's face is more beautiful than her back." Well, but he was taken by the Americans everywhere. Always a meeting. Brezhnev was meeting Reagan. They were going ahead. They were enemies, but they went ahead. There were so many confrontations. They carried on. So this policy of India कि हम पाकिस्तान से मिलेंगे नहीं, बात नहीं करेंगे, I mean, it's absolutely absurd, very childish. And Donald Trump is very right. जो great powers होते हैं, they talk from a position of strength, and they want to see to it. If you have a talk with Pakistan, what is going to happen? Nothing. So you might as well talk with them, open up the avenues. But the policy which Modi and was following is wrong, and he has failed. He has totally failed. Nobody is ready to ban the terrorist organization in Pakistan. And how many times are you going to keep attacking the terrorist camps? And even the world will get tired of it. Because India का refrain of terrorism as the greatest thing in the world, I think बहुत से लोग already tired हो गए हैं इससे. And they are not really appreciating the fact that terrorism is everything. Because if you see the South Asian countries where I go, I'm based in Singapore, I don't find any, wave against terrorism or something like that. No, nobody bothered. They want to have good fun, bars and all that. But India में terrorism ही एक वो चल रहा है कहानी. Of course, terrorism in India में is only in the Kashmir Valley. पर अगर वो है वहाँ, then it is India's weakness. मैंने already कई वीडियो में बताया कि कैसे इंडिया शुड हैव सैनिटाइज द कश्मीर वैली, जो छोटी सी वैली है भाई, 100 माइल्स लंबी है एंड मे बी अनदर 50 माइल्स वाइड. दैट्स अ वेरी स्मॉल एरिया. उसको सैनिटाइज करने में क्या प्रॉब्लम है? इट शुड हैव बीन डन वे बैक इन 92, जब ये टेररिस्ट जो थे इन्होंने मुस्लिम हिंदुओं को अटैक करना शुरू किया, हिंदू रहने में. उस वक्त मेरा एक सवाल है, व्हाई डिड नॉट नरसिम्हा राव इम्पोज मार्शल लॉ इन देयर? नहीं किया. Even now, I see this putting a governor and all there is going to be irrelevant, because governors have not that military acumen. We need a strong general or a strong policeman like KPS Gill or somebody, or a general, who, like Sundarji, as martial law administrator and put martial law in the valley. nothing, and you will find things will improve there right straight away. This theory of सबका साथ सबका विकास and all that is irrelevant at the moment. India की sanctity, sovereignty has to be not only maintained, restored. Now no country is talking about the Kashmir division and the obligation of Article 370. But China and Pakistan have opposed it. और ये आर्टिकल जो है सेक्शन 370 सेल्फ इंफ्लिक्टेड. अगर आप एयरफोर्स एक्ट 1950 पढ़ेंगे उसमें सेक्शन 65 में लिखा दैट एक्ट प्रेजुडिशियल टू गुड ऑर्डर एंड कंडक्ट. और उसमें एक सेल्फ इंफ्लिक्टेड इंजरी इज दैट कि आपने आपको ही खुद मार लो और समथिंग लाइक दैट. दैट मीन्स इट्स डिसग्रेसिंग द एयरफोर्स एंड दिस प्रिसाइसली व्हाट इंडिया हैज डन फ्रॉम द टाइम ऑफ नेहरू. ये 370 आर्टिकल कौन लेके आया? इंडियंस. एंड इंडियंस कैन टेक इट बैक. बट नाउ द वर्ल्ड इज ऑब्जेक्टिंग कि आपने 370 को लिया वापस. चाइना इज ऑब्जेक्टिंग विद टू मेजर पावर्स. और चाइना और रशिया की अब बस अलग हो, बिल्कुल डिफरेंट पिक्चर है. दे आर वेरी स्ट्रॉन्ग एलाइज. एंड इवन आई टेल यू इन 62 वॉर, अगर आप रिपोर्ट पढ़े, निकिता क्रूशचेव ने जब सीज फायर का स्टेटमेंट दिया, ही रेफर टू चाइना एज ए ब्रदर एंड इंडिया एज ए फ्रेंड. सो वही बात अभी हो जाएगी, चाइना इज ए ब्रदर, इंडिया इज ए फ्रेंड, एंड हु इज क्लोजर, ब्रदर और फ्रेंड? सो जेंटलमैन, एवरीथिंग इंडिया हैज टू डू इटसेल्फ. मोदी साहब जो कर रहे थे कि मैं हाई कंट्री ट्रैवल कर रहा हूँ और वो जाके जपियां डाल रहा हूँ, इज गॉट नो रेलेवेंस. आप देखिए क्या हुआ. एंड ही हैड टू क्रिएट ए मोर फोर्थराइट इमेज. And I am afraid I have already said a few things which are not happy, though I like Mr. Modi very much. He is, I think, the best Prime Minister India had after 1947. Pandit Nehru, Shastri and all these fellows were, lacking in so many things. And I think the weakest man of all was Narasimha Rao. I think he was just put on the throne and he didn't know what to do. And then we had non-entities, people who didn't know a damn thing, like Gujral being made president, Dev Gowda being made president, Charan Singh being made prime minister, and then we had Chandrasekhar as prime minister. All these fellows were just ciphers. Why they were put as president, I don't know. And now, after so many years, Modi came with a thumping majority in 2014, and he should have solved the Kashmir problem by now. And now that problem has become insurmountable. मेरे ख्याल में solution नहीं होगा. मैं कश्मीर को बहुत often जाता हूँ. And when I was in the air staff inspection team, Dasi, I used to go to Kashmir very often for inspection purposes. और मैंने एक time ऐसा था, I will tell you in 92, when I went for an inspection to the air base in Kashmir and I was to stay in the officers' mess at Bargaon, I had to fly from the airport to the officers' mess. I couldn't go by road because the road, I was told, is very dangerous. The terrorists will attack you. Now that was the stage in India in which I lived. And now the problem is almost similar. None of the Kashmiri Muslims are your friends. They don't want to be with India. And how are you going to solve that problem? That is the problem which Modi has to solve. I'm not going to give the solution. This is not my job. But I will just say to Modi to study how the Chinese dealt with Xinjiang, where there was the insurrection by the Uyghur Muslims. And because China is a great power, not a single Muslim country from Pakistan to Turkey has opened its mouth to criticize China. But yet, the Organization of Islamic States every month gives a resolution, every year a resolution saying India should stop the atrocities in Kashmir. Even when Sheikh Hasina was in power in Bangladesh and she used to subscribe to this resolution, Bangladesh to subscribe, they never opposed this resolution. So gentlemen, when 55 countries are passing such resolutions against you and they do not pass anything against China, iska kya matlab hai? We have to draw some conclusions. And the conclusion is that Indian foreign policy is weak, number one. But foreign policy can only be strong when you are militarily strong, you are economically strong. And militarily and economically, per capita income of the Indians is very low. मैं कजाकिस्तान में गया था and I have been to Azerbaijan, Turkey, मैं simple countries बता रहा हूँ, and there the personal GDP income is 6 times that of India. China की income is personal income is about 7 times to India, the personal GDP. That means the Chinese are living better. Why I give the example of China is that its population is similar to India. Chinese have finished poverty. India ने poverty खत्म नहीं की. Reason being कि we are living in a different world. Our world is nothing. We don't want to dominate the world. Why you don't want to dominate the world? China wants to dominate the world. और चाइना की हिस्टोरिकल हिस्ट्री है कि चाइना के टाइम व्हेन द ग्रेट एम्परर्स वर रूलिंग ड्यूरिंग द मिग डायनेस्टी, China was known as the Middle Kingdom, the center of the world. Everybody went to China with folded hands. Chinese technology was top class. But India, unfortunately, was under the rule of the Muslims at that time. And the rule of the Muslims continued for 1,000 years. I think exactly over 900 years. It's very sad occurrence. And if you go to the history of that period, there are any number of Indians who were collaborating with the Muslims. I have just finished an article on Hub Pages in which I have done some research and brought out the fact that the Ghaznid forces, the Ghaznavid forces led by Muhammad Ghori, had Hindu soldiers and generals along with him. There was General Tilak who was going along with Modi, with Ghazni. It's a very sad state. I mean, to talk about it, Indians themselves were going and supporting the invaders. And even when they became rulers like the Delhi Sultanate and then the Mughals, these people were still doing lip service, ji hazuri to them. Otherwise, can you tell me, at that time the Indian population was 25 crores and the rulers were just about 3 to 4 lakhs. They could have easily been overthrown, but the mass population didn't do it. Because India में एक caste system था where the scheduled castes were left out. And militarily, I will tell you, एक बहुत important point which I must tell you because this is a topic which I am going to talk for a long time. Why did India lose all the battles in history? This is because of the caste system. Only the Kshatriyas could bear arms, the others could not. And if a Shudra was found bearing arms, he was killed or his hands were cut. This was the thing. So जब battle होता था, the Kshatriyas used to fight, and once they were defeated, there was no backup. Because other people are not allowed to bear arms. So you can well imagine India had to lose, and still we are going to lose because Mr. Modi has gone and said, now I will do the caste census. What the hell is going on, damn it? Caste census? What for? In the middle of the war, he made this statement, I'm going to do the caste census. And once you do the caste census, it's like opening the Pandora's box. How is he going to do it? Because as I've told you, he's a man with a very limited horizon. A good man, but his horizon is limited. And Jaishankar, of course, is only concerned with foreign policy, and the other members of the cabinet are just yes men. I don't think they have an independent view, and that includes the defense minister Rajnath Singh. I think we could have a more dynamic man than him as the defense minister, who could advise Modi how to position the troops, who could go ahead and put things forward. But unfortunately, we have reached all of us a stage where India is becoming there inured. Inured means you are happy with what is going on. And somebody creates a trouble, then you react and then you do all the things. Just imagine the Naxalite war is continuing for decades. Even now it is still continuing. You can't blame Modi, of course, for that, because it continued from the time of Nehru and Shastri and all that. The Naga war also has continued for the last 70 years. There is no end to it. Because India has a pacifist approach, and that is not what it is. If you remember, in Chechnya, there was a revolution against Russia. The Muslims were there, but there was a ruthless attack by the Russians Hundreds of the Chechen fighters were killed, and the insurrection or the guerrilla warfare started by the Chechen Muslims was finished. How do you do it? Got to do something. You can't just keep sitting on your this thing and then say Kashmir. And whenever this India says, whenever there is an attack in Kashmir, we will treat it as an act of war. Fine, that's a good thing. But act of war means what? You may fight for 2 days and again have a ceasefire, like what's done now. So we have to be very careful. First of all, the first step is there is no point in fighting with Pakistan or accusing Pakistan of everything. Have contacts with Pakistan at the highest level. Meet them. Donald Trump is right that a strong man will not just run away. He will talk to the opponents. So talk to the Pakistan in a position of strength. And at the same time, crack down in the valley on the insurrection there. That means even if you have to capture some innocents of men because it's collateral damage, you have to do it. There has to be ruthlessness, maybe even enforce martial law. After all, Pakistan has martial law enforced 3 times, and they, even in that period, hanged one of their prime ministers, Zulfikar Ali Bhutto. Ayub Khan was the first man who introduced martial law in 1958. Martial law is a very terrible thing. Martial law regulations were put in Pakistan. I don't see why we can't have martial law regulations enforced in the valley. You have to snuff out the terrorism there. The terrain suits them because the terrorists can run away into the jungles. But you need to persevere and follow them. That is the only solution I have. Blaming Pakistan all the time, I think, is becoming very stale. And even the world is feeling very stale. I don't see any African country, a lot of countries in Africa are interested in what's going on in Kashmir. Or India is launching some attack, they are not attacked. Even the Chinese, I think, in a way, are not interested. The only country interested is America, which is a global power. But America doesn't back India against Pakistan. They will back India against China, yes, but not against Pakistan. Why? Though Pakistan had harbored so many terrorists there, they harbored Osama bin Laden, who was shot by the Americans, and so many other of the terrorists were being given a heaven in Pakistan. But the general perception is, and all over, the general feeling in America is that Pakistan is our ally. They've been with us for a long time. And they have done a lot of work for America also. There's no second thought about it. And the war in Afghanistan, a lot of support was being given by Pakistan. Logistic support with weapons and all, trucks and all going from Pakistan and entering Afghanistan. So America will not forsake Pakistan at all, and neither will China. India has to build up its military and its economy. I have one question which I have been wondering for a long time. In 1948, India was way ahead of China. We had a locomotive factory, cars were being made in India, Hindustan Aeronautics was operational, there was steel plant in India, Jamshedji, etc., Tata Nagar. Everything India was way advanced than China, where not even a cycle was being made. And China was embroiled in a civil war, which continued till end of 49. India had a head start, but the head start ended as a down start because China has now overtaken India, and even the Americans are really scared how this happened. It is because of the Chinese character. That's one thing. The ingenuity of the brain of the Chinese. Whereas the Indians are talking always of the caste system, Shudra, and we should give him some more post and all that. They're not realizing that when you're going to give a man who doesn't fit the qualifications, he's not going to be efficient there. Now you have got people from, say, the scheduled caste or something like that, and you give them some jobs. I'm not saying whether you give them or not, but if you give them a job, their capability will be much below the man who has got selected with the merit. So India has lost that merit-based selection long time back. Earlier, of course, in the time of Nehru and Indira Gandhi, it was very limited. It was just 24% or something, or 22.5%. Now it's 49, 50% reservation. And tomorrow it will be 80% reservation. So, There will be no research in India. As it is, I can tell you an authority, I'm a postgraduate in nuclear physics. In India, no research of any value has been done by the national physical laboratories. Zero. They're just eating the money from the government grants, the scientists sitting and doing nothing. And whenever the foreign specialists have been called to India, like Dr. Kurtang, they found that the Indian infrastructure and situation was such that you couldn't do a thing in India. Dr. Kurtang was brought by Nehru to India, and he's a very famous designer, the chief of Focke-Wulf, the German during the time of Hitler. And he was working in HAL, and he made an airframe which was the HF-24. But the engine, you need technology for it. There's no engine available, so an underpowered Rolls-Royce engine was put in, and the plane was not even accepted fully by the Air Force. Same thing with the Tejas. The plane engine is coming all the way from America, General Electric, and you just made the frame. Millions of dollars have been spent. Even the air chief was very sad when he said in the last, I think, 10 years, HAL has been able to supply only 40 planes. Now, because the engine is not coming, when the engine doesn't come, what the hell are you going to do? That is the problem we are facing. Ingenuity, lack of brains. Chinese do what is called reverse engineering. It's not easy to duplicate. Their scientists work. Even, for example, the cars which are coming from America or England, BMW, Rolls-Royce, they do reverse engineering. That is, they remove the engine parts one by one and duplicate them. That requires research, ingenuity, which India doesn't have. It's a very sad way we're talking on so many varied topics. And today I wanted to talk on so many topics, not just foreign policy. Because foreign policy, as I told you, gentlemen, is related to your military power. And India lacks the military power. That is the crux of the issue. And it also depends on your economy, how much you can help the others. Chinese are helping the South, the African nations, because they have deep pockets, they can get the money. And they have invested millions of dollars in Pakistan, in this corridor which they have made. Yes, they are in trouble there, because all investments don't bring money. But they have the money and they don't give up. America has got so much of money, and Donald Trump is right, they were flitting away on wars. He changed American foreign policy totally. And if you look at it in a way, what he has done is, he has not equated Pakistan with India or something like that. He has just said, don't fight, talk. And if required, I can mediate between you and solve the Kashmir problem. Now your problem is that you have to solve the Kashmir problem or keep on fighting all the time and make statements, कि हम आज़ाद कश्मीर ले लेंगे, ये कर लेंगे, वो कर लेंगे. It has got irrelevant talk. You will not be able ever, in my opinion, to take Azad Kashmir. And so many of our astrologers, daily put up some astrological forecast that in another 4 months Pakistan will break into 4 parts, 3 parts. Well, this was this time to break Balochistan. But Balochistan is just a small population. And now the Pakistan army is going to put 4 or 5 divisions there in Balochistan. Who is going to beat them? I don't know. I hope God will smile. As the saying goes, the Buddha will smile and Balochistan will become independent. India must now act with a forward policy and support Balochistan. At the same time, sanitize the valley. 2. Third, have a border settlement with China. And you are the inferior power and you didn't accept the Chinese terms earlier. Discuss with the Chinese what exactly they want and what is the level of accommodation you can make. There is no choice. The leaders who are leading India cannot leave these problems unsolved for the next generation and the generation after that. India has to progress and make way forward. So you have to do these things. At the same time, you have to have an active policy, a foreign policy laced by military might, like removing Yunus from power, number one, and even removing the Maldives president from there. And in that case, I will say we had one prime minister who was really top class, and he was Rajiv Gandhi. I hope Modi can at least be Rajiv Gandhi. He sent troops to Sri Lanka. The IPKF was there under General Harkirat Singh. And they beat the hell out of the LTT. Jaffna was captured. Till Narasimha Rao brought the troops back home. And even he was so foresight, so forthwith, Rajiv Gandhi, that he allowed an attack on the Maldives. And Indian troops flew all the way from Agra via Trivandrum and landed in the Maldives and restored order there. I think these are things which Modi should have done. He didn't do anything like that. He intervened in Bangladesh, he could have intervened in the Maldives, and Nepal, which is acting so corny, needs to be taught a lesson. And how do you do it? There are so many ways, tens of ways. Even Bhutan is very restive now because he's not confident that India will be able to defend Bhutan. The Chinese putting pressure on Bhutan, and Bhutan ultimately is going to have a direct talk with China. So, gentlemen, this is the point. You have to have some aggressiveness. Your policy has to be one wherein India is showcased as a world power, and you have to build up world power, not waste time on caste system and all that nonsense. The idea should be to take India forward as one nation, and I expect the RSS to be the leader in this. Unfortunately, the RSS chiefs and all that have forgotten the cardinal way the RSS was formed in 1925. Well, gentlemen, I think I've spoken enough. I will say goodbye and God bless you all. I hope you like my channel. Please share it with your friends. And I will once more say, come back and do hear my video. This has been a long one, but I wanted to talk on so many topics, starting with the foreign policy. I've given some suggestions which you must have seen and heard, and I'll be very glad if you can give your comment about them. I will say goodbye and Jai Hind.